Greetings, Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the Archives. Count Dooku is an extremely complex character who has received a whole lot more characterization in recent years, especially with his 3 episodes in Tales of the Jedi. Despite him being one of the main antagonists for the Clone Wars, there has always been more to Dooku than meets the eye. He was once a Jedi trained under Grandmaster Yoda, and the one who would go on to mentor Qui-Gon Jinn, a man who went down as one of the greatest and most enlightened Jedi in history. Dooku always cared very deeply for Qui-Gon, and it was his death that sent Dooku into a spiral of becoming Darth Tyrannus. Despite being a Sith Lord, however, Dooku still exhibited several traits that some might consider to be redeemable. One of these is his underlying affection for one Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is a topic that we have touched on once before, but in this holocron, we have new information that we thought was very relevant, which presents Dooku's cares for Obi-Wan out in the open by word of his own mouth, as Dooku finally explains why he cares so deeply about Obi-Wan. Our source today comes from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, and my friends, we are quite excited to share what we have found. So without further ado, let's explain why Dooku had such a soft spot for Kenobi. The text we are pulling from comes out of a conversation between Sidious and Dooku aboard the Invisible Hand during the Battle of Coruscant. We talked about how this conversation a few holocrons earlier when we referenced how Sidious stated that he actually loved Anakin's mechanical arm. Well, in this same conversation, the two Sith Lords were discussing their plan once more right before the two Jedi entered to rescue the Chancellor. Palpatine had already decided that he wanted Dooku to kill Obi-Wan in an effort to drive Anakin further into the dark side, thus assuring their total victory. However, Dooku once more shows a tiny little ray of light within as he pleads one more time for Obi-Wan's life. Their conversation goes like this. Dooku says, "May I suggest, Master, that we give Kenobi one last chance? The support of a Jedi with his integrity would be invaluable in establishing the political legitimacy of our new empire." Sidious responds with a gentle tone, calling out what he knew to be true. "Ah yes, Kenobi. You have long been interested in Kenobi, haven't you?" It's there that Dooku finally admits in his own words how he actually feels about the Jedi Master. Of course, his master was my Padawan. In a sense, he's practically my grandson. Tyrannus here finally shows a crack in his shell of darkness, revealing the final attachment which he has for Obi-Wan. We actually get straight from Dooku himself how he really feels, putting aside all the pretense for once, which goes to show just how he actually cared for Kenobi. The fact that Dooku was willing to go for bat for Obi-Wan, even to Darth Sidious. This isn't the first time that we've seen Dooku do such a thing either, as he has defended Ventress to Sidious after he was told to kill her. Back then, Sidious put Dooku in his place with a force choke. But here, it goes much differently, as Dooku approaches the conversation from a much more humble standpoint, conceding to Palpatine having learned from the last time. Sidious cuts Dooku off mid-sentence when he compares Obi-Wan to his grandson, and Sidious says this: "He is too old, too indoctrinated, irretrievably poisoned by the Jedi fable. We established that on Geonosis, did we not? In his mind, he serves the Force itself. Reality is nothing in the face of such conviction. Kenobi must die, today, at your hand. His death may be the code key of the final lock that will seal Skywalker to us forever." Again, Dooku just agrees with his master and makes no more commentary on the subject, but he shows that he is still very uncomfortable with the idea that he has to kill Kenobi. I have to say that I really like getting into these interactions and seeing them unfold. Dooku is one who usually plays his cards pretty close to the chest, but actually chooses very specific times in which to reveal vital information so that he can manipulate the people around him. This was one time where he actually let it slip and made the mistake of showing his vulnerability around Sidious. Dooku deeply cares for Obi-Wan because, as he once said, Obi-Wan is basically the last remaining memory of Qui-Gon Jinn, and is the living representation of all the good things that Dooku managed to accomplish as a Jedi Master. Let's go even further into this for just a moment. In a holocron we submitted to you all the other day, we talked about why exactly Dooku despises Anakin. The fact that Anakin reminds Dooku so much of himself as a young man and as a Jedi. Anakin is the living representation of all of Dooku's failure and betrayals, which is why Dooku hates Anakin so much. But then we have Obi-Wan, a strong and a dedicated Jedi, once who learned at the feet of Qui-Gon and went on to become one of the greatest Jedi of the entire Order, achieving even a seat on the Jedi High Council by Revenge of the Sith. I can imagine there is a part of Dooku that is actually impressed and even proud of Obi-Wan, a part of Dooku that still lives as a Jedi and takes pleasure in the fact that Obi-Wan is still a living member of Dooku's Jedi lineage. Obi-Wan wasn't bested by Maul or anything in this war, but still kept coming again and again, proving his mettle to Dooku more times than anyone else on the Council, or even in the whole Jedi Order. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Obi-Wan Kenobi may be the only Jedi in the entire Order, including Yoda, that Dooku fully respects. And here he is faced with the ultimate choice: to kill him, and by virtue, kill his past self and Qui-Gon indefinitely, or be forced to bargain for his life. I think Sidious actually picked up on all of this. You see, the reason why I love this interaction is because of all of the subtext. For Sidious, he needs Obi-Wan to die so that Anakin will turn. However, he also needs Obi-Wan to die, possibly to test the loyalty of Dooku. Sidious clearly knows what Obi-Wan means to Dooku, as he even points out that Dooku has been quite interested in Kenobi ever since he turned to the dark side. Sidious even makes a point to remind Dooku that he already attempted to turn Kenobi once on Geonosis and failed. But the fact that Dooku again returned and bargained for Obi-Wan's life really tipped Sidious off to the fact that Dooku still had a Jedi attachment. One last final weakness that he had not weeded out. And of course, this was not acceptable. While I believe it was Sidious's plan to kill Dooku the entire time, I cannot help but wonder if Sidious's decision to have Dooku die was reinforced by the fact that Dooku defied his orders and spared Obi-Wan during their duel. If we look at the duel itself, Dooku had lifted Obi-Wan by his throat and kicked Anakin away. It would have been nothing to make Anakin watch as he ran Obi-Wan through with Dooku's lightsaber, while the Jedi Master was helplessly suspended in the air. However, Dooku did not kill Obi-Wan, instead fleeing him off the balcony and trapping him under a walkway. We can even see Sidious's expression when Dooku does this. He looks pained, confused, and disappointed. His eye then flicks to Dooku. I firmly believe that he was furious that Tyrannus did not finish Kenobi when he should have. Dooku clearly knew what he was doing, and know that Obi-Wan would survive, which of course he did. This is why Palpatine tried to get Anakin to leave Obi-Wan there, as he knew the Jedi Master would have survived that attack with little more than a concussion. Force sensitives are incredibly durable, as force-reinforced physical bodies allow them to survive a great deal of blunt force trauma. If Dooku wanted to secure Kenobi's death, then he would have ran him through with the lightsaber. I believe that when the time actually came, Dooku did not have it in him. He couldn't kill what remained of Qui-Gon Jinn, or he would have been no better than Darth Maul. And this is why Dooku has a real soft spot, and a weakness even, for Obi-Wan. This was one of the defining moments where Dooku decided to defy Darth Sidious, and it infuriated him, made his blood boil, and Sidious knew that Dooku would never leave that room. Though it's information that we always suspected, it was beautiful that we actually got a confirmation in the Revenge of the Sith novel about how Dooku really cared for Kenobi. But what are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think Dooku spared Obi-Wan on purpose, or do you think that this was a coincidence? Let us know your thoughts down below. And as always, thank you so much for visiting the channel today and for your support. May the Force be with you.